My talk today, titled Laughing with the Ancients, centers on two stories that I've read um, and enjoyed from ancient Rome. The first that I read is called A True History or A True Story, depending on the translation. And the other one I want to share with you is called The Lysistrata by Aristophanes. Oh, that's not showing up at all. Oh well. There's a book here. That's the content of that. I read A True History because it was recommended to me in a class that I took back at UW. The class was called STEM in the Ancient World, Science, Technology, Engineering, Math in the Ancient World. And it centered on this story, a true history, where Lucian, the author of this work, writes his travelogue. It's in the genre of travelogue. The most famous travelogue these days is Marco Polo's Adventures, but this was many centuries before that. But Lucian was living in an era where people from the Roman Empire were traveling out to the far reaches of England and Egypt and coming back with stories of finding magical sphinxes and dragons and towns that were comprised entirely of women. And there was an odd number of those. But regardless, he steps in to share the true history, the true story of his journey, and like any good explorer, he came prepared. The he had all the food for he had a team of men appointed by the king. He had provisions of ale and water and food, and he had a great supply of armor. Most of that he left in the whale, but he was able to luckily resupply at the sun, and all so he had all the provisions he needed really. And as you may be able to tell already, despite the insistent title of this being a true history and a true story, this is actually often cited as one of the first, if not the first, work ever of science fiction. Because Lucian was sitting there looking at all these people claiming they'd gone to these fantastical places with these insane things, and he decided to one up all of them by saying he went to the moon. In the story, his ship is sucked up in a great typhoon and carried all the way to the celestial bodies. And let me see. It has some of the tropes and ideas that we see even today, including intergalactic war, where the different stars and constellations are um, going to battle with each other over territory. It also includes one of my favorite tropes to this day, which is the space whale. The idea of these huge whales that can be even bigger in space than they are in the ocean, which you see in works like Pinocchio or Treasure Planet. Here in the first sci-fi story, back in 200 CE, it was already a thought that was swimming around. Um, so that's a big recommend on my part. And I wanted to circle now to the book I actually bothered to get in person, which is the Lysistrata, written about 200, I think it was 400, so about 200 years after. Um, this play, this one's a play, um, is about a coalition of women in the warlike city of Sparta who decide to wield what power they have and try to avoid a silly war that's going on, a needless war, by performing a sex strike. And there are many fun situations that arise from that, especially when you remember that in ancient Rome, all actors were male. So you've got these male actors in essentially drag, acting out these women who are fed up with the silly exploits of their warmongering husbands. Um, Despite the many intentional jokes that did make me chuckle a little bit as I read, the joke that's emerged most in my memory was actually an artifact of the fact that I'm reading a translation into English from thousands of years later. What happened was I was sort of skimming, and I come to this line where one of the women says, um, I fear we may need to resort to the use of the godemish. One Greek word left untranslated. We may need to resort to the use of the godemish. And there's a little footnote saying that's translated down below. So I'm thinking to myself as I'm skimming, reading quickly, okay, I wonder what godemish could mean. It's probably some sort of strategy, some sort of like war or negotiation tactic. And then I follow down to it's a one word footnote, just the translation. And it turns out that Godamish means dildo. She was not discussing tactics per se, or perhaps she was, a way she might be able to prolong her sex strike. And something about just seeing an entire footnote that's just the word dildo just stuck with me. I don't know why they left that untranslated. I guess they wanted to teach me some vocabulary, which may come in useful when looking at our next topic, which is those people who sat in the audience watching plays like the Lysistrata. They didn't want to let all the commentary and all the jokes go to the playwrights, but it was a very common practice in ancient Rome to write graffiti for political means or for something as simple as I was here. Um, they ranged from very short compositions like I said, just I was here or voicing support for various emperors. Or there were some more lengthy compositions, such as Floronius, privileged soldier of the 7th Legion, was here. The women did not know of his presence. Only 6 women came to know, too few for such a stallion. Or, weep, you girls, my penis has given you up. Now it penetrates men's behinds. Goodbye, wondrous femininity. And what I like about these bits of graffiti is it seems like such a parallel to like a drunk tweet or like tossing something up on Facebook, that it really makes me feel like the more things change, the more remarkable it is when some things stay the same. And I think that we lose a lot of the image of humanity when we read only the most grandiose and esteemed works from a civilization. Like, of course, yes, I love the Odyssey. The Odyssey's great. Love all the works of Shakespeare from much later, but I think there's really some great value in going back and reading the lighter things that people of the ancient that people of history entertained themselves with. And I wanted to share Lucian himself, as it happens, had a similar opinion on education, and I wanted to close out my talk with uh, the first couple pages of the introduction that he wrote to his true history. Even as champions and wrestlers and such as practice the strength and agility of body are not only careful to retain a sound constitution of health and to hold on their ordinary course of exercise, but sometimes also to recreate themselves with seasonable intermission and esteem it as a main point of their practice. So I think it necessary for scholars and such as addict themselves to the study of learning, after they have travelled long in the pursuit of serious authors, to relax a little the intention of their thoughts, that they may be more apt and able to endure a continued course of study. And I hope that we can all um, find a little time to have some mental repose in these trying times as we put our own little modern day graffiti about how we don't like the new emperor who will be being sworn in tomorrow. And I hope we all take some time in these the serious moment for the empire to find some levity and to laugh as we fall. Thank you.